Gerardo Porteny-Backal, a UN Women Youth Representative for the HeforShe campaign, founder of the Young Men for Gender Equality, and a fellow NYU student. So nice to have you here today.
I'm delighted to be here with you, Stephanie. Thank you for having me.
So you are without a doubt really engaged in the global conversation on gender equality and women empowerment, traveling around the world, speaking at youth summits and giving TED Talks. Tell me, how did you get involved? Why? How did this all start?
Well, I first started my journey in philanthropy when I was 16 years old. I was very inspired to see a pink soccer ball in the Azteca Stadium, a soccer match that was being played in support for the fight against breast cancer. I had always sought for ways of thanking my mother and my sisters for everything that they have done for me. Of course, I need to mention my dad, because if not, he gets mad. He's been wonderful. And I realized that words weren't enough. I couldn't just say thank you or gracias. I needed to demonstrate it through action. So my idea was to make a pink uniform that we could take to the private school that I was studying on, because if players could use pink, why should we not? So I started with that project called Pink Life Against Breast Cancer. Now we're celebrating 5 years of it being the uniform of the schools, not only in October, but all year long. And I was evolving, I realized that there were not many men that were actually participating in women's causes, such as breast cancer. When I got all of the money and donations out of the first foundation, I went in a tour to seek how to spend it in a responsible way. And I found out that every other organization, it was led by a woman, it was had women volunteers. Basically, I was the only man professionally fighting against breast cancer. I knew that I wanted to do something about it, and I did what every other 17-year-old in the world would do. Started the first professional car racing team in Latin America that races non-profit in benefit of a social cause. You can imagine 2 hot pink cars in the middle of the racing track with the breast cancer ribbon on them. It was a great story for everyone to cover, and it really became the official channel of men to support. And from there on, I was lucky enough to be the representative of Mexico in the Youth Assembly of the United Nations, where I finally learned about a reality that continues to shock me. 3.6 billion individuals in the world are limited since the day they are born with inequality, just because of a genetic factor, one chromosome. This doesn't make sense. In my house, if there's someone that went first, it was my sisters. My mother equally loved us along with my father and contributed to the household responsibilities and income. I didn't understand, it didn't make sense why these women were limited. From that moment on, I knew that it was my calling, not only my passion.
So throughout your time engaging with these global conversations, what are some key points that you would hope others would take away from your experience and from all of these global efforts?
Well, the first one is that we are continuously listening to speeches and conversations that say that we, the youth, are the generation of the future. Let me tell you a little secret. The future starts right now. We're the generation of the present. And every day along the world, we continue to see other young people do incredible things that have an effect for society in general. The second one is that the fight for gender equality is not one between men against women, but rather of everyone against this gender inequality, gender discrimination. And it doesn't matter if you think you're part of the issue or part of the solution. We can truly all make a difference. And if you're in a doubt, you can remember Emma Watson's words, if not me, who? If not now, when? And finally, I can tell everyone that by pursuing a life of philanthropy, you're truly receiving more than you're giving. You're able to live the life you love, and there's nothing stopping you from doing that. I would never imagine 5 years ago if you would have told me that I would have now the privilege of being here sitting with you, talking in NYU, but it has all happened and one step at a time. Finally, I started with 200 pesos in my pocket. That for you is like $9. But I found a way to finance the sweatshirt project with the pre-sale, and I got the creative innovation. Young Men for Gender Equality, my NGO, operates now in 52 countries, and we don't even have a checking account, which means that we're all counting on the passion, vision, and determination of the young men. Doesn't matter if you have money, if you don't have, everybody has the ability of being a philanthropist, and there's nothing more empowering than lighting the life of another person.
Have you experienced any challenges trying to convey these messages about gender equality which are not necessarily universally accepted?
Well, sometimes, of course, it's important to say that we cannot go ahead and always speak to people that agree with us, right? Because if not, we wouldn't be changing anything. In fact, I think that gender equality is always understood as something morally right, because since the day we're born, a woman gives us life. It doesn't matter if we're a woman or a man. But there is so much more than that. And when usually you show someone the benefit of embracing a lifestyle of equality, then you get him to turn around. I'm going to tell you a curious story that happened to me in Vermont. I always try to convince people that gender equality benefits themselves, not only the women around them. So I asked in a conference, hey, does everybody think that gender equality benefits you? A guy called Alex told, no, not at all. So I asked Alex, please tell me a story of a woman in your life that is affected by inequality. He told me, now that I think of it, my mother continuously works, putting extra hours, giving the best results in her company. But when it comes a moment for a raise, they always give the raise to other men that give worse results than her. Told him, Alex, that's a problem. What would be your solution in an ideal world? Told me I would actually go with the boss and show him in a black and white paper that when you promote an individual that gives better results than another one, the company does better and the stakeholders get more return on investment. I thought that was brilliant, and I asked him, Alex, if you implement a solution and your mother gets a raise, how would your life change? He actually told me I would have more time to spend with my mom and with my dad, because the household income would be balanced. I would have an increase in my happiness and in the happiness of all of my family. I would even have a chance to getting a better education. Since the moment I asked him, does gender equality benefit you? He told me sure, and he actually went with the boss and got his mother promoted. Since then, he became a great activist for women economic empowerment. When we realize that we all benefit socially, politically, economically, culturally from gender equality, regardless if we're a woman or a man, then we can receive the message in a much more convincing way.
That's a fantastic story. Lastly, you were speaking about youth engagement. So we as youth often imagine heads of state dealing with such global complex issues. But what role do we serve as young people in these global conversations, and why is it important that students like us at NYU get involved?
Well, we cannot afford not to. At this moment, we're living the biggest youth bulge in the history of the world, which means that we are the largest population of persons between the ages of 15 and 30, 1.8 billion. And the world cannot achieve the solutions without us. They often say in conversations about equality or any other topic that it is for the men and the boys to change, or the women and the girls. And they often forget that we are in a primary moment in our lives to understand the full panorama that is going on and also change, transform our lifestyle. So I think it is determinant that we engage. It is predominantly a matter of getting solutions, not only a participation and an active voice in the table, because there is not a global calling, there's not a global campaign without our voices in it. Let me tell you, lastly, a very, very funny story of how I got engaged with the HeforShe campaign. I was suddenly seeing my Twitter feed about March last year. It was International Women's Day, and I suddenly saw an implosion of the hashtag HeforShe everywhere. I thought it was incredible, as it was really talking the same language as I was doing with Young Men for Gender Equality. So I decided to send a message to this woman called Elizabeth, who is the head of the campaign and was tweeting very actively about it. And I told her, Elizabeth, how could me or Young Men for Gender Equality get involved? Of course, I didn't expect an answer. That same weekend, they received 60 million tweets. But somehow, they found in them to reply to me, and not only that, invite me to come to New York and meet them in person. I was in Mexico at that time, and I was so excited that I immediately flew to New York, and I took all of my family with me. So imagine a young 19-year-old knocking the doors of the United Nations with mom and dad next to me. So they received me, and I started talking with Elizabeth about everything that we do in Young Men for Gender Equality in the day-to-day to combat practically gender inequality. We battle against gender stereotypes. We respect women's freedom of liberty and action. We stop gender-based violence. And when I was getting to the point of Inspire, she told me, stop. And I thought, oh my God, I'm here in the best opportunity of my life in the United Nations with my mom and dad in front of me, and I have suddenly offended someone. I know that gender is a sensitive topic, but I don't know what I said for her to stop me. Good enough, I hadn't offended anyone. She only wanted Pumsilem Lamont Kuka, the executive director of UN Women, to come in the meeting and listen to what I was saying.
Of course.
I was incredibly honored. She is an historical character. The previous deputy president of South Africa, a freedom fighter alongside Nelson Mandela, and the first African woman to head a United Nations agency. She told me about everything they were doing in the HeforShe campaign. I knew that I was going to be engaged somehow, but I never expected what was about to happen 2 hours later. I received an email with an invitation to be the consultant of global youth engagement in the United Nations Women. And this gave me the opportunity of working for around a year in the development and the implementation of the campaign. And it was incredible because they knew that to truly get youth engagement, they needed another young person. Even if to be a consultant of the United Nations, people think that you need to have a PhD or a master's degree. You only need to have that true passion and vision and believe in yourself to be a part of the same table with all of these heads of state that you're talking about.
Well, thank you so much, Gerardo. That's a very inspiring story about women empowerment and gender equality and youth engagement. Thank you so much for being here today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, and thank you for everyone that is seeing us. Please feel free to stay in touch with the campaign, to stay in touch with me, and we need to understand that together we're much stronger. So let's keep it that way.
Thank you.
Thank you.